Good evening, Washington, D.C., Facebook, Instagram, everyone who's watching on social media. My name is Earl Rush, and I'd like to welcome you to the Earl Rush Straight Up Talk with Earl Rush show. And tonight, we have a very special guest. I only have 5 dance heroes, and I will name them for you. There's Sinai Gianni from Washington, D.C., Shaka Brown from Washington, D.C., and Ismael Otero. That's 3, right? Who's the 4th one? Oh, well, anyway, Adrian is the 4th and the 5th one, Adrian Valdiva. He's an excellent instructor, performer, events organizer. He teaches Rueda de Casino, Afro-Cuban rumba, cha-cha-cha, mambo, danzón, and Yoruba orisha. He's got energy, infinite energy. The reason why he's one of my heroes is because he has a passion for dance like not too many people that I know. And he's really a really great guy. He's been
Hey, everybody.
Adrian, how are you there?
I'm here.
Thank you, Adrian, for taking time out of your schedule. And because I know you're busy now with the little one, and while we're on the subject, how is the little one doing?
Definitely. Thank you for having me here. Can you see
Can
me?
you hear me?
Can you hear me? I can hear you. You're a little cut, but can you see me and hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay. How's the little one doing and your wife?
We're good, man. We're good. He's something. Every day is something new. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, but it's a lot of hard work. So I mean, even if it was if the pandemic has been a curse, it's also a blessing because I have gotten to spend a lot more time with him at home, with us, and also be able to watch him develop and grow. So it's been amazing.
Beautiful. Okay. This is a good. All right. So you're from Venezuela. How long did you live in Venezuela? How long have you been living in Washington, D.C.?
Washington D.C. I lived Venezuela. I'm originally from Venezuela. Yeah, I lived the first 16 years of my life, and then from there I lived in Africa for like a couple years in Malawi.
Wow.
And from there, I came to Washington, D.C. Well, I went to University of North Carolina in Asheville, and then my parents ended up moving to Washington, D.C. As diplomats. And I ended up in Washington, D.C. That was about 20 years ago.
So you went to a military school, right? You went to
Kemper Military School. Kemper Military School, yeah.
Okay, all right. So do you think that attributes to your discipline as far as being a great instructor and having great attention to detail to the dance? Do you think that helped at all? Going to military school?
Probably, but the attention to detail part comes more from my dance partner, Amanda Gill. She's a former ballet dancer, a modern dancer, so she instilled a lot of that detail that I put as an instructor and also as a performer to make sure that we get things right in a lot of ways. I'm passionate of Cuban dance, period.
Right. Okay, so you grew up when you were growing up. You grew up with a lot of artists and stuff in your family, right? You didn't just get into salsa when you came to DC. You grew up around the art environment, correct?
Yeah. How you know that, by the
way? I'm not trying to be funny or anything, but if I try to do some research on
I
people
see, I
that
see, I see, I see. Okay. Yeah,
I don't want
all my yeah, no, I see, I see.
to.
All
Yeah.
my all my uncles and aunties danced since they were little, and so they all dance salsa. I mean, that was one of the things in the 70s, and during that time, it was a time in Venezuela in the 70s, early 70s, and late 60s, early 70s, and where Fania stars were kind of was blowing up at that moment in time, and what they called the salsa craze. At the time, it was not called salsa; it was called song, cha cha cha, mambo, all those rhythms, and depending on the rhythm they were playing, that's what they would call them. The word salsa came later on because of a radio DJ from Venezuela in the late 70s that decided to market the music that particular way. But but they all danced and they were the best dancers in the neighborhood. So every weekend I got exposed to see them dance all the time. And so that's how,
Okay.
seeing them dance, seeing my cousins dance, and I actually, I'm a little bit of a late bloomer. I didn't really start dancing as much until like I was like 10 or 11. All my cousins knew how to dance, but they would pick on me because they used to call me el tieso, meaning that like I was a stiff one. I couldn't. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it wasn't until,
Okay.
and even to this day, they say, the reason why you dance like you dance is because of us. That's what my cousins tell me, and so so yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. But we used to have. Imagine, I mean, we used to. I come from a very poor neighborhood in Alta Vista, in Caracas, Venezuela, and so you used to have bands. Final stars used to come to our neighborhoods and play there. That was like the best thing. I mean, I was super little. I mean, I was like 3 or 4 years old, something like that. But imagine finding the stars in your
Okay.
neighborhood, playing. So it was a big deal.
So, like, yeah, that was awesome.
That was amazing. Mhm.
Okay. So, unlike most of my interviewees, you, you didn't start dancing because of a girl. You started dancing just because you wanted to dance, correct?
Well, in Venezuela, and I think this is true for any Latin American country or Caribbean country, Spanish Caribbean country, you socialize with dance. You know what I mean, and sports. So if you can, I grew up. If you can't dance, you can't really talk to girls. You cannot really hang out at parties. You can't really do many stuff that you want to do. So it's kind of tied to your social norms. You know what I mean? There's not much you could do. You gotta either learn, either sink or swing. You know what I mean? So it's not that it's in the sports was kind of the same thing. I love basketball and soccer. I grew up playing those sports. I mean, I went to academies in Venezuela to play those sports, and I was pretty good at it. I went, I played high school and college basketball. But I grew up, my first sport was baseball because everybody in the country had to play baseball because Venezuela, everybody plays baseball. So if you didn't play baseball, there's
Right.
something wrong with you. What's wrong with you? Same thing came with for dancing. If you are a guy, you can't dance. Something's wrong with you. So it was a norm. It was a pressure, a social pressure, to make sure that you're that you have to dance. You still
Can
there?
you hear me, Adrian?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can
Yeah,
hear you
can you
now.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear
All
you.
right. All right. Okay. So you guys, DC Casineros was created in Atlas Morgan in the club,
Yeah,
Havana Village.
Havana Village,
Tell me about that.
2005. So Amanda Gill, she was the founder director, and a couple years before she had gone to Cuba, or the year before she had spent a couple summers in Cuba, learning modern dance and ballet, in Cuban ballet and modern Afro-Cuban modern dance in Cuba. But during the day, she would go to Instituto, to what they call the ISA, which is the Instituto Superior de Arte, which is the Superior Institute of Art in Cuba, which is the best school of dance in Cuba. And she would take classes during the day and during the semester. But in the afternoon night, she would go to a Rueda Casino to practice with a dance company, how to dance Rueda Casino. And so this is something that she enjoyed and she loved to do. So what ends up happening is that at the end of the semester, and when she graduated from university here at she decided she told her professor, "Well, like, oh, okay, you ready to do a modern dancer and a ballet dancer?" She's like, "You know what? Actually, I really want to do Cuban popular dance, and I'm not down with the modern dance anymore. It's cool, thank you. I'm just gonna create my own dance company." So she basically recruited a bunch of social dancers, and what I did, I was basically one of the first, or the first her dancer that she had. And all my friends danced at the time. I mean, all my Latino from Colombia, Peru, Venezuela, everybody that I knew, all the men and women that I knew kind of danced. So we just say, we all had different styles, but we said, you know what? Screw it. You know what I mean? Just come through. So it was all a bunch of social dancers. And she recruited us, she taught us the stuff, and it seemed very fun. I did find it very, very, very much closer to what Cuban dance was a lot much closer to what I grew up in Venezuela, because it was very different from what mambo was here in the United States, or what they call mambo. I was seeing a lot of, one of the biggest cultural contrast, or shocks, was like, cultural shock was when I came here and I saw performances of this thing that folks were calling mambo, to this particular music from the 60s and 70s. And I saw the choreographies and the dance, and we were like, well, this doesn't look like how we dance in Venezuela. So I was not as connected. I would still, go to the club and dance, every salsa club. You see me since like 1999, 2000. but definitely, but when I was seeing the Cubans, I said, that is a lot closer to how I dance, or how my uncles and my cousins dance. That was kind of like the essence of what they were doing. So I said, okay, well, yeah. So when Amanda came, and this white girl coming from Cuba teaching us this stuff, I was like, well, this is a lot closer. So I told all these Afro-Colombians and everybody else that came through, and those other Venezuelans, and they're like, yeah, that looks a lot closer to what we do in our countries. So we just decided to join, and that's how kind of started evolving.
Okay. Lee Elguito from DCBX sends his love. Shouts out to you.
Definitely. Great. Tell him I miss him. We need to do something, online or something like that, or when the pandemic is over. Something.
If it's anybody that can do it online, it's Guiguito. So he got the
definitely.
So Adrian, how did you meet Amanda?
Havana Village. Well, yeah. Well, actually, salsa parties. Like the Afro-Colombians in the city back in, for instance, like 2000, they used to have what we call salsa parties. The salsa party was basically a space for Afro-Latinos, Black Latinos, and African Americans and Black Caribbeans to come together, and everybody else to come together. And then dance to salsa from Colombia, from Cuba, from Puerto Rico, from so that melting pot of people. But at the same time, then they would play reggae and hip hop, and then sometimes they would play traditional Venezuelan music, Black music. They would play Peruvian cajon. It was crazy. It would go crazy because all of us. The crazy part, we were in our early 20s, and we were all coming. We were all had a lot of us were immigrants coming from our cultures where we were very we're still seeking that part of our identity that we grew up with, the sounds of our culture, our people, and so on. So time to time, and kind of became sort of very popular and kind of blew up. And so that's one of those nights. That's where we met. And she used to hang out with a crew of young women that I know from a long time. So yeah, that's how we met.
Mm-hmm. I used to go to the social party down on U Street. Yeah.
Yeah. It started actually now as Morgan.
Okay.
It started now
Okay.
as Morgan. Hmm.
Yeah. I know. I used to go down there, and I was like amazed because I said, "Look at my people down here dancing," And
I know.
usually the crowd is a little bit more diversified at the salsa events that I was going to.
Yeah, definitely.
I was liking Wednesday night down there. I was feeling it. I
No,
was
it was
feeling.
dope. It was really dope, and I had a lot of Howard University students. So basically, it used to be. I mean, imagine it was all young adults, so it was basically all the crew. It was the Afro Latino, also the Afro Latino club at the Afro Latino Association at Howard University. We recruit all these Caribbean and African American students to come to these parties too as well. So that was kind of like also the first time for a lot of those African American students to kind of get a first glimpse of salsa music and
Right.
of Latin culture in a sense, and in a way, but connected through Afro Latinos, you know what I mean? So it was easier for them to kind of started to relate. Oh, okay, but this is Black people like us. They just speak Spanish and they dance this particular way. Like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
one thing I like about you, Adrian, I've been in the scene for a long, long time.
Hmm.
To be honest with you, I have never heard anybody say anything negative about you. Never,
Wow.
never. I mean, I've never heard any haters or nothing about you.
Damn,
Maybe
that's
because I've
good.
been in that part of the scene or whatever. But I've never heard anybody say anything negative to. And you've
That's
always been
good.
very kind to me and
Thank
always
you, man.
upbeat, positive energy. You know, and I like that, and I like the fact that you guys get along with the other casino Rueda groups in the city because a lot of time there's drama between dance groups in the scene.
Yeah,
You
definitely,
guys,
definitely.
you guys get along with Saoko is another great group. And
Yeah,
I
definitely,
assume you
definitely,
guys get along with Barbara Bernstein's group. I
definitely.
like the fact that there's no drama between the casino and Rueda groups in the area. I
Yeah.
like that.
Well, and also, part of it had to do with the fact that we kind of all grew together. Like Barbara started a lot early before us, but
Yeah,
I think in 2005, 2004, 2005, basically, Saoko and DC Casineros kind of started their evolution, and
yeah.
we kind of like and we used to since way back. I mean, in 2005 we had our first collaboration. The first year we were
Uh-huh.
together. And then since then, time to time, not every year, but every now and then, we'll have different collaborations and do different stuff.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there's always been. I mean, there's always a little bit of skirmish here and there between people in the Cuban dance community. But I in my I always I'm always so excited to just go out and dance. I mean, I'm a performer, I'm an instructor, but at the end of the day, I'm a social dancer, and that's been like that since I was 11. So all I want to do is dance with everybody, to have a good time because I'm just trying to get back to like my roots in Venezuela. You know what I mean? And that feeling that I had when I was 11 years old. So I don't have any time to like sort of be on the side talking smack or gossip. And sometimes when I'm drinking water, all I do is go to the club, drink water. Time to time I buy a drink here and there, but that I just see me. I'm like by 3 a.m. in the morning, I'm the last person in the club and I'm all sweaty. I have to bring like another shirt. You know what I mean? That's all I'm doing. So it's not, there's no time to have any kind of drama or any
Right.
kind of like things because I'm always dancing.
Yeah.
It's always been about the dance.
Yeah. I mean, you get down. That's why you're one of my heroes. You don't care about whether anyone's looking at you, whether someone's looking at you or not. You're there to dance to have fun and enjoy yourself. That's
Yeah,
why I
man.
love
Yeah. And if the music is bumping, man, hey, I'll make it. That doesn't matter if it's 5 people or 3 people or 100 people. I'm bumping. I'm making a party. It
you.
just don't matter to me. My son knows, man. We play some Cuban music at home, and I'll be jamming, and he'd be like, "Wow, this guy is just crazy. It's too high for me." Just go be
I
jamming.
love it. I love it, man. You know. So tell me about the production that you guys did. The Los. I don't want to mispronounce things. You guys did a production.
Oh yeah, yeah. Los Bambán. Bailando con los Bambán. Yeah, that was probably our best production. Yeah, we have done a lot of different productions and dance plays and at different at the Kennedy Center and at different places in national and internationally. But I would say the best production that we put together, and we probably had that only about 200 people have seen that production. Was Bailando con los Bambam, which is basically we did a historical a historical view through dance and video through our dance choreographies of different period pieces for Los Bambam, for the Orquesta Los Bambam, all the way from the late 1960s to 2020, 2018. And it was, I mean, I have the video, I have to send it to you. I thought it was amazing, but we put about 6-7 months of work, like every day, just killing. Me and Amanda just like thinking and then sending stuff to the choreographers. I mean, that was like group work, crazy. I mean, shout outs to all our choreographers in the dance company because they really stepped up the game. I mean, they come up with different concepts based on the ideas and the history that we were researching and producing. And then shout out to Los Bambam because they provided so much information. I mean, we had an anthropologist that went to Cuba to interview the director of Los Bambam and Pupi Los Que Son song to really get those videos here to be part of the show as well. And also this, I mean, just basically the whole, I mean, between Cuba, Washington, D.C. and the dance company and, we all came together to do that show. And again, I thought it was an amazing production. Also the people that recorded the show did an amazing job too as well. So yeah, for the concept of the show, I mean, I always tell Amanda that at the end of the day, for me, the dance company, I'm a big, I'm very left leaning in a sense, and I come from a very, very community organizing based background from in my country, and so for me, the idea of dance has to be revolutionary in some ways. And what I mean by that is that there has to be some kind of social justice piece to whatever I'm doing when it comes to dance. Like it can't just be something that I'm doing. I mean, yes, it's great, it's fun, and I'm in the club, but there has to be something around social cohesion, social justice, history that is given to the people so they can understand. And so when it comes to DC Casineros, in the essence of that show is to let people know what those dances were, what the history of this band is, and why is it important to understand and to know, and how this band and this music and this dance make the world a better place.
Wow. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the affiliations. Think about this. And in our discussions, we discussed Los Van, amazing group, legendary group, and we mentioned the Kennedy Center. So how do you feel about your group performing at the Kennedy Center and you being able to have an affiliation with Los Van? How does that make you feel?
At first, it was just honor, and of course, sometimes you're starstruck. But, some years ago, we started to go to Cuba, Amanda and I and some of the dance company. And when we went to Cuba, working with different master teachers, there was something that got ingrained to us, that we needed to be representative of this tradition from the perspective of, we were basically the voice of Cuba through our eyes, through Washington, D.C., to the world or to this community. So whatever we decided to do, we always had to answer to our master teachers in Cuba and to everybody that has sort of had informed us and let us know everything that was going on. So whatever representation of dance we were going to put forward, we always had to be very cognizant of how we were representing the culture in Cuba, specifically when it comes to Cuban popular dance. So, for the most part, even, we stopped being so much a Star Trek, but more about being understanding that we had a mission to do this. So, so while it was great and it's a great honor, at the end of the day, it's more the mission is we got to get this stuff straight. Like whatever work that we do with the All Stars, which is the great, our sister dance company in Santiago, Cuba, it has to be the best representation of whatever we could do, because over here we represented the people of Santiago in a lot of ways. Right. So we can't mess with that. You know what I mean? We can't. There's no way. So it's a lot of pressure, and not everybody, not everybody's ready for that. And I thank our dancers because they really took on the social justice aspect specifically, and the tradition aspect of this. So not only they learn the dances and the choreography, but we constantly are, talking about their history, their understanding, and they're constantly seeking knowledge for them to understand that even if we create new choreographies, they have to be based on the tradition.
Right.
So even if they look different in some kind of way, they still have to tie to whatever traditions, and that could be Cuban popular dances or for Cuban dances or whatever it is.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? So through those things, having that, we got to meet so many bands, so many master teachers, so many people, but also, honestly, are like Cuban people, and specifically Cuban, this Cuban stars, they call them here stars. They're very humble people, man. They come from humble beginnings, and they're at least the ones that still remain in Cuba. A lot of times they're not gonna be like, oh, I'm the shit, and or I'm the greatest. It's kind of like, yo, thank you for coming, thank you for listening to my music. I'm invited to my house. You can meet my grandmother. This is my mom. We're gonna make you dinner. You're like, all right.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's that kind of relationship, So it's always been like that. I mean, Alexander Abreu. And I know he's not very popular, but way back in the day, we used to go to Europe to this festivals in Europe. And Alexander Abreu, after he would play a Havana Primera, they would play a set of like 2 hours straight up at this festival. The dude will come down 2 hours later, and he will come to the floor and dance casino with everybody. Everybody had drinks with everybody. He actually, I have a funny story about him. He, little guy too. I mean, beautiful voice and amazing artistry. But he sees me, I'm dancing, doing my thing. I think I'm all that, and he grabs my girl, man, the girl I'm dancing with, and he started turning her, doing all this crazy stuff, and I'm sitting here like, wow. And I see someone that he's looking at me like, yeah, you thought you were all that. It's me, Bobby. so that shows you like a level of also of like people to people, the relationships with people. It was all about that kind of stuff. Is that's kind of what Cuban people a lot of times are like. So it's a lot easier to connect to those artists.
Right. Okay. You had mentioned them. I was going to talk about them next. I didn't have the correct name. I'm sorry. I don't like to butcher names, but the All Stars that you guys brought to Lucky Strikes.
Yeah. The All Stars Santiago, Cuba. Yeah. Santiago, Cuba All Stars. Yeah.
And you're very correct. They did not put on the air. They seemed to be down to earth, and they were so down to earth. A lot of them were in the what's that dance we do? It was a line dance we did. I can't even think of it. And they were all in the wobble.
Yeah.
We did the wobble.
Wobble. Yeah, I mean, they see all those dances in the United States. They go to YouTube, like all of us. You know what I mean? They're younger. They're younger generation too. Then they're in their 20s or late 20s, early 30s. So they're like, no, we know all the American dances. We know all the, we see black folks too in DC and everywhere else. We want to do that stuff. Like they can dance just about everything, and they want to be able to connect. But also, the cool thing is that in Santiago, Cuba is a smaller city. Is Havana is kind of like the big city. Santiago is a smaller city. It's like Santiago is like, you could say, it's like the New Orleans of Cuba. You know what I mean? It's kind of like where the cultural center is. But because it's a smaller city, there's a sense that it's much more tied to like what they call el campo, or where is, how do you say pueblo? Country towns. And so a lot of people in Santiago are a lot much more quieter, a lot much more. You're finding a lot much more about the connection. There's no grandstand that is needed to be part of the community. It's more. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm this, I'm that. There's no necessity to do so. In the big city, which is Havana, yeah, you got to do some grandstand. The grandstand into. It's a big city. It's like New York, the Big Apple. You know what I mean? Compare that to like New Orleans. So.
Wow, that's something else. I got to tell you, Adrian, Lee, Cat, and I have been doing Lucky Strikes before the COVID for about 12 years.
I know.
And that night you guys came, except for 3 nights when we had some live bands, that was one of the most electrical nights that we've had in all these years.
Yeah,
it was
man, that's
crazy in there. It was out of control.
I know. That's what happens when you have Cubans, man. You have Cubans you put three or four Cubans, man, in one room. It gets electrical, man. And you had like 12 or 16 or something like that. This is their culture, man. So that was an amazing, beautiful night. Definitely one of my favorites. Definitely for a long time.
And
memorable.
I always like whenever. Again, I like to go to the Casineros events, the parties, because the energy is always so up. And I'm an up person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you can connect, and that's why I always have connected with you, because you got that sense since long time ago. When you see you dance in the different clubs, man, your energy, man, it's so contagious. You know what I mean? Everything you were doing, but also your energy was off the hook. That's it. That's what dance is all about, man. That's it. That's the essence. That's the essence of this dance.
And I remember back in the day, we used to do Mr. Mambo's, and they had a party in the lower part of Mr. Mambo's. They had a Casino Rueda party.
Yeah.
Crazy down there. I love, but it's funny. You in this city, everybody talked about mambo or salsa. To be honest with you, I love timba music. I love it almost as much as Jimmy U, your boy. That's your boy, Jimmy U.
That's right.
But I love it, and I don't really see what the problem is, because sometimes you can play some timba that is flat out rocking, and I don't think people even know what the difference of it is anyway. But no matter what type of timba it is, I've never had a problem dancing anything I wanted to it. So I don't know why sometimes people say, "Oh, I don't like timba." It's probably because they just don't understand timba. That's what it is.
Yeah, I think what happens too is, I think what happens with, I love it because it's kind of like the evolution of all these different sounds from the 70s, 60s, and 70s with new instrumentation. But but I was exposed. In my case, and some of us who were immigrants coming from Caribbean, Latin American and Caribbean countries, we grew up with our relationship to what we call what is called salsa music in this country is a little bit different. See, our grandparents were playing what they call mambo music from the 60s and 70s. So we're exposed to that through them, you know what I mean? So Sonora Ponceña, Conjunto Casino, all those different groups, and then later on the 70s stuff. We got introduced with Hector Lavoe, Willie Colon, and all those folks. But that was kind of the music. I mean, I was like 5, 6 years old when I was listening to Rubén Blades, for example. But before I was, my grandmother was introducing me to even music from this 60s and 50s. But as you grow up as a teenager, you start listening to different stuff. Okay, this is how so you listen to the evolution, and Cuba had sort of like a different evolution to that music. They decided to add hip R&B, jazz and R&B to a lot of their sound. So when I started listening to Cuban music in the 90s, I was like, holy smokes, this is like the best thing ever. This is because I really love. I mean, growing up in Venezuela, I really love R&B. I was trying to listen to American top 40. Imagine that, but also like try to figure out hip hop and R&B. And Cuban music in the 90s had all that stuff. It was a mixture of basically song with salsa and R&B and funk, and so that's what you're hearing. When a lot of that stuff. A lot of the R&B. If you think about SWB groups like Jodeci, SWB, a lot of those Cuban musicians in the 90s were listening to a lot of that music, and they arranged that music that particular way and combined it to elements of song and cha-cha-cha and mambo to create this kind of sounds that we listen to. Of course, Afro-Cuban music was there too, so all that kind of mixing. So, but if you never really heard that kind of stuff, because that's kind of like a Cuban jam session, what they call a Cuban jam session. The old school people call it Cuban jam session. So imagine every song is a Cuban jam session with arrangements of R&B in it, and like and all you custom you're now in the 2000s, and all you custom to listening to is like the 60s, what they call the mambo era, 60s and 70s music. And all of a sudden you're playing kind of funky stuff. People are like, what? They might not understand that. Like, some of y'all are going to be like, God, this is hot. This is amazing. But some of y'all, and to dance it, like, what do you mean? How do you dance and stuff? But because, again, a lot of this music comes from Cuba, also mambo, that those traditions come from Cuba. Cubans know how to, how to implement all that kind of stuff. So they continue their evolution, their dance, and so on. And over here, kind of things got a little much more split. But it's basically being on how the exposure went, how people are exposed to it. So a lot of us who immigrated here tend to have much more of like an idea of if you listen to some of my folks, some of the Afro-Colombian guys that from salsa, they love timba music because it's kind of like the final evolution of how what they consider salsa music will be in the future. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I love it. I love it. I don't care with nobody. I go crazy when I'm at home. I don't know how to do steps, but I just move.
It's intense music. Again, it's music to dance. It's not music to sit down and people and even Cubans themselves will tell you there is it's not Cubans, for example. It's not like they also listen to what we call mambo and all those different sounds that are very popular in the mambo community. They also listen to Hector Lavoe. They listen to even what they call salsa romántica or romantic salsa and so on, but they don't dance to it as much. They dance to their timba. There's music to sit down and relax and chill, and sometimes dance a little bit. But to timba, they'll have the party. That's like the time of the party. And that kind of music was made for that. You know what I mean? It was the time when there's a climax in the party. And it got so hot, and then you play these tracks, or the band goes into a high note and into a climax, and then everything goes crazy. That's the purpose of the music. So it's not for everybody, and it's not for every moment. This has to also, DJs got to actually know to play certain songs and so on. Because if you're playing high all the time, your crowd is going to be like, you know what? After the fifth song, I'm done. And, I'm like, it's like I can't do it no more. So,
and just like the regular, well, I won't say regular, just like salsa and mambo DJs, we have excellent DJs in DC. But DC also has excellent timbre DJs as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Rueda and Cedric timbre.
No, definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, it has to do how they develop their craft. I mean, I would say that they really study the history. It's basically what the mambo DJs have also done. I mean, I really appreciate the how some of the mambo DJs in DC really look at the history and look at the rarest forms, and they say, I'm gonna play this track, and this is from this era. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm sitting like, oh snaps! But this is the kind of thing that also, Cedric and Reina and every other DJ that was playing at the time and now, was doing. I mean, they're looking at those historically. Okay, what is this? What is that? How can I connect this to this and to that? So,
Adrian, I'm getting old, and I don't want to not shout out my man. He's played for me. I can't remember his name right now. It's not Rand. It's not Cedric.
Oh, you mean Darwin? DJ Darwin?
Yeah, Darwin. How old I'm getting. I love Darwin. You can't talk about people DJs and not talk about Darwin.
And Darwin's been doing this since like early 2000s, man. He's been, but he has he can tell you a lot about what we're talking about, the development, the relationship to Cuban music, because in his country, what they call Colombian salsa, and what the different occupations, that sound is super funky too as well.
Yeah.
Especially in Buenaventura, the towns of Buenaventura and El Choco, those particular sounds are some of the more funkiest and rich in soul that you ever listen to. So, he can connect really well, so that's why he plays the way he plays, because he's able to really relate to how.
But you know what I like about Darwin? He plays great timbre, but he plays great music, great salsa and mambo as well.
Of course,
he's flexible.
Of course. He's very flexible. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he knows.
He's a beast.
So he's quiet too. I mean, he could have been blowing up for a long time, but he's been quiet doing his thing.
He's low key.
You know what I mean? So he just, but he's amazing. Mm-hmm. I agree.
You know what I regret, Adrian? As long as I've known you, 95, we're talking about 14, 15 years. Every year you see me, Adrian, I'm going to come to class. Or I would tell Ernesto and Saoko, I'm coming to class. I regret that I never learned it, because I'm going to be straight with you. My memory is shot. And I don't think, even after repetition, I just don't think I would be able to remember all the calls. I would freeze up.
You. No, I feel you.
I love that stuff, man. I would love. I envy you guys when I see you guys dancing in the circle. And I said, why don't you just go take the class? But my mind is shot, man.
No, I understand, man. I mean, but you're like, you're a big time promoter too, so it's really hard. I mean, where to find the time, where to go, how to do it. It takes some serious commitments and some serious stuff that you have to do. But no worries, man. I mean,
I got the time. I want to make the commitment, but I know just like Darwin plays for me a couple of times. I couldn't even remember his name. You see?
Yeah. No, I feel you.
From my previous past experiences, my brain is shot.
Yeah.
Maybe from things I used to do when I was a younger man or something. I don't know. but I love that. Well, let me ask you this, Adrian. Sometimes I see you guys dancing, but it looks like you guys are doing a certain form of on-two. Am I tripping? Does it seem like you guys are doing some type of form that's similar to on-two?
Well, so on two, what you guys call on two, or what the historically speaking, you know what I mean? You know, Cuban dance, Cuban popular dance, what we call now the casino dance,
Right.
which was partner dance. Uh, so there's three different confusions that happen when the dance comes to the United States, right? So number one is casino is the dance, and then Rueda Casino, the wheel of dance, is the choreographed type of dance that people do together to calls, right? But the dance that the partner dance came before, which is called casino. But this particular dance is casino. Has its roots in Cuban song, which is another particular dance. And I think you've seen me dance that before, perform that
Yeah.
before. I did it a couple times, and actually I did it at one of the Mr. Mambos. Like this is like maybe like 6, 7, or maybe like 10 years ago, maybe.
Right.
But
Right.
to show people, you know, this song, Cuban song, is the evolution, is the root dance of mambo, or what you call onto mambo, and casino. It's just that it goes kind of this way, right?
Right.
Your mambo is not, it connects when it gets to the United States, it gets connected with Lindy Hop and different line dances. Song in Cuba, it stays, and it starts to evolve in, because of the big holes in Cuba. It starts to evolve in what we call casino dance, which was much more of a circular dance that these partners were doing. Later on, because of cha-cha-cha, wheels of cha-cha-cha, they connect this. They connect this to they start doing what we call Rueda Casinos, now that we know Rueda Casino. But so this dance song was danced at contratiempo. What version of would you guys call on two? But originally, everything in Cuba from the 1800s on was always until the 1960s, 50s or 60s, was that contratiempo, or on two. Why, you might ask? Because all the music was syncopated, right? So when the music was syncopated, dancers were following the timing, the strong timing. They were because of how then some music in the late 1800s was played. Okay, so the original close positions of all those dances, what they of those dances, um, and the musicality of it, everything was syncopated. Everything was what we call what here this generation calls on two. Later on, as the dance and the music evolves, in the 1950s, there's a particular music called guaracha. And guaracha music, oh, I think I'm losing you. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Did you get
Yeah.
anything of what I was saying?
I couldn't, but the people who are watching could hear you. They can still hear you.
So guaracha is a faster type of music in the 50s in Cuba. And what happened with guaracha is that dancers can no longer dance on two or on contra, because it's super fast. So you can't really get the feeling of this. So dancers started dancing on one. And that kind of like, and that's how, you know, casino evolved. But a lot of people still dance contratiempo in casino, or on two on casino. So we, in dancers in the Cuban community, dance on one or on two all the time, back and forth, because that's kind of like what how the dance evolved. Too, I mean, you know, but primarily, originally, the dance was always danced to contratiempo. It just kind of evolved because of how the music changed. The music got faster. Once the music got faster, it was harder to dance on two.
Okay. Well, that I always wanted to know that, and I
Mm-hmm,
knew that
mm-hmm.
you could explain it to me.
Yeah, no, definitely. No problem, no problem. Yeah, it's, you know, and it's really hard even to like Cuban music now, timba music, to dance, depending on what sections. You can dance contratiempo or on two, or what you call on two, on the first part, the first verses of the music, like the first, I don't know, the first the first 2 3 minutes. But when the music goes into a climax, you can't really dance on two anymore, or contratiempo, you really call it. You have to do on one because the music gets faster, it gets funkier. There's different things that you have to do. There's different dances that you have to short in there. So, and this is the reason why also it's really hard to learn casino dance as a partner dance, because not only is the dance itself, but because the music has evolved, now you have different dances that you have to kind of put in song, mambo, cha-cha-cha, sometimes Afro-Cuban dance, because they put that in the music, so you kind of have to kind of follow the rhythms of the music in that way.
Okay. So what different styles do you and Amanda teach at Dance Place? What different styles? I listed them earlier, but I want you to say, just say that I pronounce them wrong or anything.
Different styles. Well, we primarily teach casino dance as a partner work dance. We were teaching song before the pandemic, Cuban song, so students can find the connection between song and the structure of dance of song, and later on be able to be better casino dancers. Because if you learn the structure of song, then you can actually dance casino just like this, because a lot of the structure of the dance is based on song dance, and even dance song before it. And we teach casino partner work, song, and then we teach Rueda Casino, which is the dance, the how do you call it, the circular dance that you've seen before. Sometimes we teach rumba, Cuban popular Afro-Cuban rumba, or what they call here Afro-Cuban rumba. It's really just Cuban rumba. And that's about it. I mean, sometimes we do teach Cuban popular dances like mambo, cha-cha-cha, Mozambique, here and there, just because sometimes they have been added to how dances now form. And, a lot of people do ask us about Afro-Cuban dance. We perform it, we train in it, we don't really teach it that much.
Okay.
Because that's kind of a very hard dance to really teach, and it kind of takes years to develop and to become very, very good at that. So we leave that to the folklorists in our community.
Okay. So can you explain to me what is Yoruba Orisha? What is that?
Well, so Yoruba Yoruba are a particular people from the country that is now called Nigeria. Before colonization, that probably there was a different name to that particular country or to that particular people. So when they say Yoruba Orisha, I think they're referring to La Regla de Ocha. La Regla de Ocha is a particular religion based primarily in Cuba, but also in Puerto Rico and different countries, including here in the United States. Through La Regla de Ocha, what you've seen probably are a set of different traditions of what they call orishas, and orishas are sort of the gods of this particular religion, the different manifestations, spiritual manifestations, and every part of this particular orisha or this particular saint. I'm trying to make it relatable to other people outside the religion that might not understand. So every representation, I'm just going to talk a little much more about the dance instead of talking about religion. Has a particular dance, have a particular sound, and has different how do you say it? Caminos, different pathways. Now, that means that, let's say there's about 7 that are the most popular orishas: Elegua, Ogun, Oshun, Chango, Yemaya. I'm forgetting a couple. But so with those, it's different dances. And within those root dances, there are different manifestations that people do. And so what happens is that in the 1970s or in the early 1970s in Cuba, there is a movement to try to make sure that these dances were kept. How do you call it? What is the word? Were continue to be promoted as part of African heritage in Cuba. But that means those dances were also taken by the universities and the faculties. Therefore, they also evolved. Now you see professional dancers doing a lot of those dances, and they become part of cultural idiosyncrasies of the different countries and so on. Of Cuba, of the people of Cuba. So you have kind of like you have a dichotomy where you have Cuba, the religion in within the population, but you also have people that actually have master's degrees on this particular dance that later on travel to different parts in the world, like the United States, like places in Europe, and teach this particular traditions, which are beautiful. They're beautiful dances. They're amazing dances, and this is what you see now. Just different interpretations of the dances, and now those dances are kind of commercialized, and they've been put in choreographies and different things and so on.
Okay.
So there's a distinction between those what we call folkloric dances, Yoruba, and there's Yoruba dances are part of it, but you also have dances from the Franco-Haitian tradition. That's Haiti. That is from the Franco-Haitian tradition, where it's like those are where Haiti has a lot to do, especially in the region of Santiago, Cuba, and that particular region. They have a lot much more connection to those. And those are dances like palo, which you've probably seen before, Congo Laye. So when you go to Cuba, there's huge constellation and diversity of those dances. It's just that here, when they get here, they get popularized in some kind of way. So, there's always this, it's like, instead of saying cha-cha-cha, well, just call it cha-cha. So here it's like, well, let's just call it Yoruba Orisha. Instead of like, well, there's actually 20,000 dances. Whoa. But the confusion is that there is folkloric dances and then there's Cuban popular dances. Rumba, for example, is not really related in that particular way. It's related in some ways, but not it's not a religious dance like these folkloric traditions are. Rumba is a folkloric tradition, but it's also a popular tradition. So it's similar to a casino song those dances. Right. So when you think of Colombia, rumba, guaguancó, yuca, macuto, those are folkloric but popular traditions. Okay. Then you have Orisha, Yoruba, folkloric but religious traditions, much more deeper. And that is why, in a sense, we defend a lot of times those traditions and we try to be very, very successful, because you might start learning something and all of a sudden you try to bring it to stage, and then you might get in trouble, because for some folks this is like sacred work. You know what I mean? It's like, what the hell are you doing doing my dance? Right. Represents our community. You know what I mean? It's like, what? Right. So we try to focus as much as we can on the popular manifestations of dances from Cuba, not so much on the folkloric traditions. We train and we sometimes perform those folkloric dances, but we're very careful of how we do it, and a limited sense of what the best thing that we can do. Because there is on those folkloric traditions where you find a lot of the essence of the dance period. The body oscillations and the kind of work that you have to put in will help you for the rest of your life in many aspects of you as a dancer. So, training Orisha dance, but at the same time know enough of that tradition to make sure that you have an understanding what you're doing, because these are deeper. There's communities in Cuba that are very, very guarded about how those dances are done and why.
Okay. All right. Adrian, I got two questions. I know you got to go. You got to get back to
Sure,
you.
no problem. No, he's sleeping, so
Okay.
yeah.
I saw you came to Lucky Strikes and you did a collaboration with Jonathan. How did that
Yeah,
come
yeah.
up and how did you meet him?
Jonathan, I know Jonathan from maybe 2010, 2011, maybe. I mean, I think we saw each other at Atlanta Cuban Festival. And then I think he went to Cuba, trained in Cuba, came back. And I think he approached me back in 2016, maybe, about doing some collaborations. And I thought he was so humble and so awesome, such an awesome person, and also like he's an amazing dancer.
Yes.
He's, I mean, he's the next generation of our community, but also I think the future of both communities because he's able to do both. That he's able to dance mambo, he's able to dance Cuba,
Right.
casino, song, orisha dances. I mean, he's truly the manifestation of what the future is going to look like. For a lot of our communities. And so, we kind of started working together. And, I love to collaborate with other dancers. I mean, I try to collaborate as much as I can with my master teacher in Detroit, Dwayne Wren, and with
Yeah.
different dancers as much as possible. I think it just makes you better. I mean, I learned so much from dancers and collaborate. Even people to come to me like, oh, I've seen your videos, from Europe. Oh, I've seen your videos, are amazing. And I'm like, dude, let's do something together. And
Mhm.
I learned a lot. They learn a lot from me. And that's kind of the same thing that happened with the All Stars. I mean, I was like, oh my God, the All Stars Santiago was starstruck by them. And they're like, oh, thank you. Well, you want to do some collaborations? Let's do some together. Like, all right.
Okay. All right.
You know what I mean? So that's how it came about.
Okay. Well, one last question.
Hmm.
You travel across the country to different congresses and festivals.
Hmm.
What is your favorite Casino de Rueda festival or congress?
That's a hard one. Well, my total favorite used to be in Europe, in Germany, in Munich. The city of Munich used to have this festival, used to be called Cuba Me Mucho.
Uh-huh.
Cuba Me Mucho was the biggest Cuban dance festival in the world. We probably about 5,000 people used to go to this festival, and you had you had the best bands in the world come together for 3 nights. So imagine Los Bambán, Manolito Sutrabuco, who else? Alexandre Abreu, Isaac Delgado. All of them coming in 3 days. Oh, I think I lost you again.
No, Nick, we can still hear you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, all of them come together and in one festival, and then the classes all day with the best teachers. By the way, that's the festival that everybody loves. Michael Font, right?
Yeah, that's
But
my man.
Michael Fonts come from that festival. Like he made his name in Cuba and Mucho back in the 2000 early late in the mid 2000s. If it wasn't for that festival, we wouldn't know Michael Fonts. But we know Michael Fonts from that time.
Right.
And at that time, actually, others were bigger than him. We just knew he was the most talented at the time
Yeah.
but he was in his early 20s. He just came from Cuba, and he was being introduced by other amazing Cuban teachers.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he just blew up in the world. You know what I mean? But before there was
Yeah.
a Michael Fonts, he was in our festival doing everything. But that festival was the best. But in Europe, the Cuban music and Cuban dance is kind of the biggest thing. The biggest part of what they call the salsa community. Instead of in the United States is different. Mambo is the biggest part of the salsa community. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of like contrast and different. That's why they could do that. So that was the biggest festival for me. And then, San Francisco has an amazing festival. They used to go all the time. We just can't go anymore because money-wise, it's really
Right.
hard. We're going to try to go again. Atlanta has an amazing festival too. What else? Detroit just had one a year ago. That was really nice too. I'm forgetting some. if you see this interview, don't be upset at me. I'll give you a shout out at some point or another if I'm forgetting any festivals. But no, there's been great times. Different festivals.
Well, Adrian, we're going to wrap this up. I feel like I went to a seminar and learned so much from you today. It was great. One last question before I go. You were an awesome interview. I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to
Definitely.
the show. Gives me a lot of credibility when they say, "Wow, you got Adrian Valdiva on this show,"
Oh man, no problem, bro. It's been great. It's been great. No, it's been great. Thank you so much, Earl. Thank you for all your work the past 20 years of lifting our community, our dance scene, man. It's been amazing to have you. And look, man, it doesn't matter what happens with this COVID stuff, man. Keep on fighting, staying there. Stay with that energy, and once things reopen, let's work hard as hell to make sure that we can go back to what this thing was, because I was heartbroken about Locust Strike closing, so we gotta have to figure out another space or something to make sure that.
No, Guiguito said we already got another space for Sundays when it's over, so we're gonna have to get
great. Awesome.
Just one more question, and I'm gonna let you go.
Mm-hmm.
Do you dance bachata?
Yeah, that's bachata. Okay. I know how to dance. I dance mambo, I dance bachata, I dance salsa on 1 and 2.
Okay.
But I mean, bachata I dance because my family dance bachata and my friends dance bachata. But again, I'm constantly in a Caribbean community with all these Afro-Cubans, Afro-Puerto Ricans, Dominicanos, you know what I mean, and everywhere that I go. So yeah, of course. And as a Caribbean, as a Latino, and as a Afro Latino, you kind of dance everything. You kind of have to. So. Mm-hmm.
All right, Adrian, thank you so much. I had a very good time with you today. It was great seeing you, and definitely. I look forward to going out dancing with you guys when this COVID is going. Okay, thank you so much, Adrian.
All right, take care. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. All right, bye-bye.